All right, contentious legal battles are poised to erupt as lawmakers grapple with the new landscape of abortion access. On Friday, Attorney General Merrick Garland said the Justice Department strongly disagrees with the court's ruling. And in a statement, Garland said, in part, quote, "This decision deals with a devastating blow to reproductive freedom in the United States. It will have an immediate and irreversible impact on the lives of people across the country, and it will be greatly disproportionate in its effect, with the greatest burdens felt by people of color and those of limited financial means." Garland also said states can't ban FDA-approved abortion pills on safety grounds, speaking specifically about one FDA-approved drug. With so-called trigger laws kicking in, more than 80 prosecutors from at least 29 states, including GOP-led states, signed a joint statement saying they would refuse to prosecute those seeking, assisting, or providing abortions. Joining us now, Michigan's Attorney General Dana Nessel. So where can the states do anything to help protect women's rights, and specifically something like these pills, which could be easily accessible for women in need who may not have the means to travel?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. In terms of what the states can do, I will tell you that here in Michigan, we are doing everything that we possibly can do. So the governor has filed a lawsuit. This was before the Dobbs leak even came out, against several county prosecutors in all areas where abortion clinics existed. And, you know, her effort is to try to get the 1931 law that makes abortion illegal, no exception for rape, no exception for incest, and it's a felony offense. It's a 4-year felony. It not only does it extend to the providers, but also, depending on how you read it, it also extends to the woman herself if she were to administer pills to herself, abortion medication. Whoever administers the pills, if it is the woman herself who is administering the pills, then she also is guilty of a felony offense in Michigan. Furthermore, there is a specific other law that talks about abortion medication being illegal in Michigan. It cannot be prescribed, and obviously, as I indicated, it can't be taken by a woman. So what we are doing is this: the governor has her lawsuit. There's a separate Planned Parenthood lawsuit that right now, for this moment, means that the 1931 laws cannot be enforced. But, you know, that's on appeal to the Court of Appeals right now. And, you know, briefing is underway. And in short order, that preliminary injunction could possibly be lifted, in which case the prosecutors all around the state would be free to enforce abortion laws. I have indicated that I absolutely will not be investigating, nor will I be prosecuting instances where otherwise licensed health professionals choose to perform this procedure that has been legal in our state, as you know, for nearly 50 years now. But other prosecutors will probably make a different decision. So it's a very precarious set of circumstances here.
Yeah, and again, the state of Michigan, with the law that's now in the book because of the United States Supreme Court, would have a forced birth for a young girl who is a victim of incest or of rape. The centralized state would force that forced birth. It's extraordinary that we've been talking about this in 2022. David Rothkopf, I know you have a question for the Attorney General.
Well, I think about this from the perspective of the average woman or girl in all these states, the 26 now that are going to change their laws, because what the Attorney General was speaking about was a period, perhaps a period of many years, in which states try to reform the law, lawsuits are brought, the Supreme Court strikes down some of those lawsuits, and it is a legal welter which is difficult for lawyers to understand what laws are applied where. But if you're a 16-year-old girl who is a rape victim or a victim of incest or simply wants to move forward with their life with a right that women have had for the past 50 years, how are they possibly going to figure it out?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I think it's up to people like myself, people like Governor Whitmer, to be really tenacious advocates and to be very outspoken. And in fact, over the weekend, our largest healthcare provider, our largest hospital system, Beaumont Spectrum, which covers, I mean, you know, an incredibly large number of women have their OBGYNs through this hospital system. They actually went back and forth as to what their new procedure was going to be, so that it was unclear to people exactly what kind of services they could receive. And remember, we don't have an exception for medical emergencies. So if you have a situation where, say, a woman is diagnosed with some sort of complication, say she has high blood pressure, and perhaps she's got a 40% chance of dying during the course of pregnancy or during childbirth, that would not be enough for a doctor to be able to perform an abortion. It seems as though the way the law was drafted many, many years ago, there almost has to be a certainty that the woman will die. And for physicians, how do they know how to quantify that? Does there have to be an 80% chance that she's going to die, 90% chance? What must it be a 99% chance that this woman will die? And I think what's going to happen is, even in those medical emergencies, doctors will be so afraid of losing their license to practice. They'll be so afraid of losing their professional liability insurance. And they'll be so afraid of being charged and sent to jail that they're not going to take the chance. And as a result, even in those situations, I think women are going to die on the operating room table because they have scared the hell out of these medical providers who don't know what they can and can't do. So it is very, very concerning. And I mean, everything's up in the air right now. We do have a ballot proposal, though, that, you know, people are earnestly collecting signatures for. And if it appears in the ballot in November, and if it passes, it will actually codify Roe into our Michigan Constitution. So we're hoping that that'll be the catalyst for us to be able to have not just freedom to access abortion, but also birth control and also IVF, which would be illegal under this new set of laws.
All right, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, thank you so much for being with us. Greatly appreciate it.